Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. In today's video we have a dupe of the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette. I have uploaded quite a few dupe palette review videos on my channel regarding to the Desert Dusk palette, but I just found a couple more recently and I decided to purchase them and review them for you before I close this chapter and I move on to duping a different eyeshadow palette, because quite honestly the Desert Dusk palette is probably my favorite from Huda as far as the color story goes. Performance wise, however, I'm not exactly satisfied with what I got for my £56. So I believe this is one of those situations where you don't just save money, but you actually get better value for your money as well with some of these dupes. And I feel like today's dupe might be one of those, because I am very happy with how my makeup turned out. And just like always, I will be showing you swatches as well, and I was quite pleased with the swatches of this palette. So without further ado, let's jump right into it. So the palette we're talking about today is the Revolution Pro New Neutral Romance palette. I'm going to be referring to it as Romance palette because the New Neutral is a quite large line. They keep adding palettes to it, so saying New Neutral doesn't really mean anything at this point because they have quite a few palettes in this range. They all have this leopard print or similar animal print packaging, and inside the palette they all have 18 shades just like this one. Now looking at the palette, I think you can immediately tell that this is an exact dupe of the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette. It is a slightly expensive one, more expensive than most dupe palettes. It costs £15. However, it being a drugstore palette, you normally can find some sort of a discount somewhere, or you're gonna have a loyalty card at the store, collect points and then spend those to purchase the palette. So I don't think you have to spend £15 on this palette. You will probably be able to find it cheaper than that. For example, on Beauty Bay right now, you can pick it up for about £10. So it's quite reasonable still, considering the quality you get and considering how much the original palette cost. So it is £15. It's slightly more expensive than the other dupe palettes I reviewed so far, but I think it's still fair enough. Now, like I said, the palette contains 18 shades, just as the Huda Beauty palette does. It has 1 gram of product in each pan, so that gives you 18 grams of products in total. It was made in China, however, it is cruelty-free and vegan. It has 12 months shelf life, and it reminds you on the back of the palette that it's a pressed pigment palette, so you need to be very careful and avoid it falling into your eyes, because with pressed pigment palettes you do get a lot of particles flying around. I don't think you can completely avoiding it falling into your eyes, but they are basically trying to avoid any lawsuit, so they tell you not to use it on your eyes, but it is an eyeshadow palette, so I don't know where else could you possibly use it. Now the Huda palette has also 12 months shelf life. It was made in Italy, and it contains 1.4 grams of product per pan, which gives you 25.2 grams of products in total, which is 7 grams more than what you get in the dupe palette. However, this one is £56, whilst the other one 15. Now, it wouldn't be fair not to mention that you can get very good deals on this palette as well. I have seen it being discounted quite often to about £30. Right now in TK Maxx is available for £30, and also on several websites I have seen it for about £33. So normally you can get really good deals on this palette. I think because of the quality of the palette, it doesn't really sell as well as her other palettes, and so they are reducing the price on it quite often. It's such a shame though, because the colors are gorgeous. If they worked, this would be like my go-to palette, because I love so many shades in this palette, but they just haven't really done a good job with the shades. I mean, the idea behind them was really good, but unfortunately they fell short on quality. As you can see, the palette is slightly larger than the original one, and also the pens, I believe, appear to be larger. However, like I said, they do contain less product. The original one has 1.4 gram and the dupe one has 1 gram of product in each pen. And now without further ado, we're gonna jump into the part where I show the swatches. As always, on the bottom I swatched the original eyeshadow palette. In this case is the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette, of course, and on the top I swatched the dupe palette, which is in this case the Revolution Pro Romance palette. As you can see, the Huda Beauty shades swatch really well when you use your finger. Unfortunately, it's not always the case when you use a brush. I do find, especially with the shimmery shades, that they crumble off quite often. The Revolution Pro palette doesn't seem to perform on arm as well, especially with the matte shades. However, on the eye, I experienced the opposite. I actually found that the Revolution Pro shades had onto the skin just as well, if not better. So I'm sometimes a bit conflicted about showing you arm swatches. I know you guys want to see the shades compared to each other, and I think that's really all it does. It doesn't really show you how the eyeshadow will actually perform on your eye, because a lot of the times the arm swatches are very misleading, and just because you had good arm swatches, it doesn't mean that you're gonna have good performance on the eye as well. And that obviously goes vice versa, because it could have a poor performance on your arm and a much better performance on your eyes. My favorite example of this is the Anastasia Beverly Hills eyeshadow palette. They are made for swatches. Like, they give you the best arm swatches, and a lot of the times not that good when you actually try to use them on your eyes. Why? Because arm swatches on Instagram sell a lot better. That's all I'm gonna say. Anyway, so back to these two eyeshadow palettes. We're gonna jump right into the tutorial now, where I show you how I created today's eye makeup look. If you have seen my videos before, you can probably tell that this is the original side and this is a dupe side, and I just love the dupe side so much better. It's so much more clear, especially that shimmery shade. It just applied so much more crispy, and I think the dupe side is perfection, if I may say so myself. I intended it to look like this at least, whilst the other side, it's alright. I am not extremely happy with it, especially not for the price I paid for this palette, but nevertheless, let's jump right into the tutorial. First, I started off with the shade Amethyst, and as you can see, I applied it to my crease, outer corner, and blended it upwards slightly to enlarge my eyes and basically prepare the area for the eyeliner later. On the dupe side, I used the shade Passion. I didn't really blend out these shades at this point, because I knew I was gonna go back with another shade, a more orangey shade, and I will blend them out with that. So that's exactly what I did. I took the shade Blazing from Huda and I used it to blend out the dark purple shade that I used before. From the Romance palette, I used the shade Wild, which isn't exactly the same position as the shade Blazing. Every single shade is, to be honest. I have no idea how they managed to pull that off, but they kept the exact same order of the shades as the original palette did. Once I was done with blending this, I took my concealer and I prepared a half cut crease. Once the cut crease was done, I took the shade Twilight from the Desert Dusk palette, which is one of my favorite shades. In the Revolution Pro palette, this shade is called Crush, and it's absolutely gorgeous. First, it didn't appear to be as shimmery as the original one, but by the time I was done, I actually realized that I managed to build up the dupe side a lot better, and it stayed a lot crispier. Once I finished applying this, I went back with the shade Amethyst and Passion on the Revolution side, and I banded out the outer corner of the concealer and also just added back some of that dark purple shade on the outer corner. And when I was done with that, I went off camera to finish my makeup. When I came back, I took the shade Eden and Tender from the Romance palette and I applied them under my eye. And when I was done with that, I took some of Nefertiti and Lust from the Revolution Pro palette and I added them to my inner corner. They didn't really make a big difference, to be honest with you. I don't even know why I bothered. I just wanted to test if that shade is better than Nefertiti, because Nefertiti and Celestial are my least favorite shades in this palette, right after this Bloody Glitter shade. So I wanted to see if maybe that's something better in the dupe palette. Unfortunately not really, slightly better, but not exactly the point that I would be happy to use that shade. Apart of that, I was really happy with this dupe palette. Absolutely amazing. I'm gonna live swatch a couple of the shades for you just so you can see how good the performance is, even though, like I said, I don't really believe in swatches. I think they have absolutely nothing to do with how the shade will perform on your eyes. One of my biggest heartache about this palette is the shade Retrograde. Such a promising shade. It's supposed to be duochrome, gorgeous purple with, I don't know what is the other shade in it, maybe like fuchsia and blue. It's like an ultraviolet shade, absolutely beautiful. But once you swatch it, it's just so powdery and it absolutely just crumbles off. It's the most blah color. It really hurts. The shade is called Obsess in the Revolution Pro palette, and just looking at it, it just looks so much shinier right away. So I'm very excited to see how that one performs. Just the touch of it is so much less powdery and crumbly than the original. I do think it performs better. It is a little bit of a waxy shade though. I don't know if it's wax or glue, but something just makes it feel funny to the touch, but it still performs a lot better than the original one, and I appreciate that it's not that powdery because at least it's not gonna fall all over your face. The next shade I'm gonna do is Kashmir. I think Kashmir is an okay performing shade from Huda, not exactly amazing, but it's nice, I guess. You would expect more for £56, but it's okay, it's not bad. The shade is in exactly the same location in the Revolution palette. Like I said before, all the shades are. These shades are slightly different. I feel like the shade in the Revolution palette has slightly more gold tone. However, it was much easier to swatch it. It's definitely a better quality than the shade Kashmir. And just to do one more, I'm gonna do the shade Musk. I know I found 3 extremely similar shades to swatch. I think Musk performs really nice from Huda. I do like this shade quite a lot. This shade is called Cherish in the Revolution palette. It does have a very similar feel to it in the pan. It swatched really nice. This has a bit more purple in it than the original one does, but the performance is spot on. So overall, what do I think? I think that this Revolution Pro palette is a really good dupe of the Huda Beauty Desert Dusk palette. If you don't have the Desert Dusk palette yet, like I said, you can pick it up for about £30 right now. However, you could potentially pick up this Revolution Pro palette instead, officially for £15, technically for about £10 to £12. You will still save a lot of money. You could buy 2 or 3 eyeshadow palettes from Revolution for this price, instead of the discounted price of the Huda Beauty palette, which is technically actually £56, which would give you even more eyeshadow palette if you decide to go on an alternative route instead of purchasing the original one. I don't think this Huda Beauty palette is worth your £56. And this dupe is, I think it's actually even better than the Huda Beauty palette. It's unfortunately not that big of an achievement because, like I said before, this Huda palette does have a quite bad performance in my opinion, by my standards at least, but I love the colors, so I'm gonna keep searching and seeing how these dupe palettes perform. This one is definitely a really good dupe, and if you haven't tried the Huda Beauty palette yet, but you love the shades, I would definitely highly recommend picking up this one instead. That's it for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, because I would love to have you here. And until next time, take care of yourself. I will see you very soon. Bye.